same picture, same memory, but now I'm able to relay that without being completely overwhelmed with the emotions that you would feel from that kind of loss, but be able to articulate it in a way that is more of, I get to carry this story. I get to tell what happened, as opposed to, I suffered this.
Welcome back to the Mind Change Podcast. I'm your host, Heather McKean. Please take a moment to like, share, subscribe, press that little bell so that you don't miss any of our episodes. And please share this with someone that you know that might be interested. You never know how it's going to help somebody else. And it helps us to continue to create all this great content for you. Joining me today is a special guest, and that is Matt Jefson. Welcome.
Thank you, Heather.
Tell us just a little bit about yourself.
Heather, I'm originally from Iowa. I grew up in the cornfields, working on a farm. And after I graduated from high school, I had the privilege to join the Air Force. I did that for 29 and a half years. And of course, that brought me out here to the East Coast. And along that pathway, I got married. I have 3 beautiful daughters. And but with military experiences, you move around a lot, and this wound up being our kind of final resting place as I recently retired and took a job here in the local area, doing very much so the same thing I did in the Air Force, taking care of facilities and doing facility maintenance.
Great. So, military man.
Didn't necessarily have that plan, wasn't a family tradition, but got into the lifestyle. It suited me, it suited the family. And although we talked about whether or not I should stay in at different points in time, we use the phrase, God opens and closes doors. Well, the exits or the off ramps, he closed when we got to those. And wound up doing it for way longer than I ever anticipated or thought.
And recently retired?
Recently retired, been retired now for just about 2 years.
Great. So, Matt, how did you come to know about mind change or learn about mind change?
I came to know about it through my wife. She had heard about it through some mutual friends at church. And we had the opportunity to go down to one of your workshops in Austin, Texas, I think is where we were. Was my first introduction to it. And she wanted to go, and I was like, okay, yeah, let's go. Fun weekend away with the wife. This sounds great. And then I got into the workshop, and I started to, how was it you say in some of your presentations, Heather? I'm the guy in the back with one eye open, one eye closed, going, what? But the more I listened that day, the more I thought, this has a very practical place. With some of my military experiences, dealing with post-traumatic stress, just dealing with the stresses and pressures of military life and service, particularly as it related to some of the combat experiences I've had. And I really started to see it, and it started off, I was seeing it in a utilitarian way. I know how to use this to help others. This can really help me help others. And then it started, the more I thought about it, the closer I got. We had an opportunity to attend another workshop here. Then I started to see, wait a minute, I can benefit from this. I am the one standing in need, and this has a place in my life.
What was the shift for you there? Like, what did you hear something, see something? What did you start to see that this could be an application for you personally?
Where it really came to be something that I thought could really help me was, I was having a conversation with my wife, and I said, well, I don't necessarily see the effects of some of my own personal experiences. I don't necessarily see where they affect me all that much. Yeah, it's true. I don't like to do this or that. But then we started making a list of things that I wouldn't go do anymore. And that really started to make me go, whoa, I need to do something about this. Okay, I wouldn't go to large events, even church services where they were playing loud music. I'd wait in the lobby until that was over before I'd go in. And we just started making a list of the things that I was just pulling back from. And I'm like, this is not right. And I was like, yeah, I do need to do something about this.
And would you say, for people who might not understand, or even people who really understand combat, military situations, it's not like they don't talk to you about PTSD or, right?
No, they do. They do. Every time I went, they talked to us on the front end. It got to the point where they started even doing mental evaluations on us on the front end, as they started to understand more and more the post-traumatic brain injury type effects. And some of that could be just from hitting your head on, not even being wounded in any way, but just concussions and everything else. And they started to do a lot more mental evaluations of us. So, and every time I got home, I had a post-tour interview where they'd bring me in, talk to me, any problems, any issues. And I was like, no, not really.
And I would assume that's a coping mechanism.
Absolutely.
To keep doing what you're doing, to keep going back into combat situations and horrific situations. I would almost think the debriefing of them, if you really were to allow yourself to see it, feel it, hear it, the impact that it had, you wouldn't go back.
Exactly. And I think what was happening, I wasn't conscious of it at the time. And it wasn't until I really started working on myself that I really became even conscious of what was going on. And that was, I was going to protect things here from what was over there. Why would I want to bring that home?
Yeah.
So, I think some of it was not only me defending myself or protecting me, but me protecting my family from everything I was dealing with over there. So I had to get my head around that even, because I didn't even realize how guarded I was even sharing my experiences, if that makes sense.
And maybe uniquely for you, being a little more of a higher ranking official, I'm sure that was even more isolating.
That is a very true statement. The higher you go in rank, the fewer friends you have. Part of it is, as you're on an installation, your peer group just naturally gets smaller as you get closer to the top. So you have that effect. But the other thing I found was not everyone had the same experiences. So what we were finding was a lot of the support forces in the Air Force were on the ground supporting Army units, not always with Air Force units. So a lot of the experiences I was having were more in line with what some of my Army brethren were having than even some of my peers in the Air Force, because I'd been assigned to Army units, actually more than I was actually with Air Force units on the ground. So it gave me this kind of, like there wasn't anyone else that had necessarily the relatable stories and so on and so forth until I'd get around a larger group and so on and so forth.
One of the things that we deal with in dealing with people with trauma, especially big T trauma, that we see has a profound impact on them is the inability to share. Being alone in it is one of the bigger pieces of their traumas. Yep. Whereas sometimes when people do collectively process and everything, that can be in real time, can be a little bit more cathartic, and we see that that has a little less impact on the nervous system. Where for a lot of military individuals, they're going and seeing horrific things that most civilians would never even conceive of seeing and being a part of, and then also not being able to talk about it and then really being, in one sense, alone in so few people can relate to those situations, that it really does oftentimes move from PTSD to complex post-traumatic stress disorders.
Yep.
Because of the uniqueness, especially in particular projects where there's classifications and nobody knows, and you know things nobody should know. And there's there's so many layers of the trauma.
I would agree with that. And I know some of it, like I've always tried to be very open with my family. But when I'm sitting down to talk to that person that is the closest to me, my wife, and trying to relate to Kim my experiences, I have found at times it was very, very difficult. But yet, if they put me at a table with 4 or 5 other people that had been in theater at the same time I was, and we start, I'll use a Hawaii term, talk story.
Yeah.
And we start telling our stories and everything else, Kim could be sitting beside me. We'd be leaving the event, and she'd go, "Why have you never told me any of that?" But there's something unlocking about, I firmly believe that there's something unlocking about being around others that have similar experiences in that same time frames and everything else. I think that's probably why, the VFWs did so well right in the end of World War II and everything else. I mean, there were all these guys coming back with those, and they were looking for a place where there were those of like experience.
Mm-hmm. And what we know from neuroscience is telling the story is really important. But then after that, if we repeat the story and there's no resolution of it, it becomes actually deeper ingrained and a stronger reaction for us.
Yes.
And I know that a lot of what we hear in veteran stories is, like you're saying, certain things, large groups, large sounds become triggering. And they're triggering things that would be very difficult to process, even just with a therapist or a counselor or somebody else. And it kind of further locks you away.
Exactly. One of the other things that I really learned from your workshops that really helped me was that understanding of every time you go to a memory, you change it. And I found that very, very informative, because I realized, wait a minute, I could be making something worse or better, or misaccounting events. And to know and have that knowledge and understand that is one of the things that really helped me see how mind change and how you take us back to a point and continue to talk about it, and the questions that are asked and everything else. That was something, as I went through it and started to experience it more, was very, very helpful for me. Because then it wasn't, if you will, I realized I'm not making mountains out of molehills here. There really is some things here that I need to learn how to deal with. And for me, one of those was, you don't go from being in a combat situation where there's several people, like 70 some people being hurt, injured, killed, to your living room in 24 hours and it not have a real hard impact on you. And yet that is the reality of some of it, because of the speed of which we can now travel. And you can literally go from that in-theater experience to having a theater experience in your living room within that amount of time. And that is a very, very difficult to make mental transition. And that was one of the things that, when you were sharing about memories and everything else, just that really resonated with me.
Oh, it's such a good point. I think we don't really think about the speed in which soldiers, 50 years ago had quite a bit longer travel.
Yes.
For things to process, knowing they were going to be home, and everything kind of happens really quick here. I didn't even think about that. So I don't remember exactly, but I know 2 years ago we were in the DC area and we had an event here, And you actually came in and volunteered
Yes.
for one
I
of our
did.
trainings.
I did.
Had you had any mind change work prior to that?
Not knowingly.
Okay.
Uh, and I say that tongue in cheek because I had a mentor through the church who would ask me a lot of the questions. I just didn't know their basis. Okay. So I wouldn't say directly. I didn't have any exposure other than the workshop we attended, and so on and so forth. So that was my first real, if you'll indulge me, this hands-on experience with it.
Yes. And it was such a wonderful experience to be there. So you came in with a very traumatic combat memory, one that you'd been carrying for...
Well, at that point, it would have been almost 18 years.
So yes, almost 18 years. And sitting down within minutes of bringing it up, it was very real for you, very strong, and something that you had not really been able to talk much about.
Yep.
And relatively quickly in the work, not only did we have you able to talk about it, walk through it, go back to the experience, but really change the way you were holding that experience. It's always difficult for people to speak about what happened in session because we're working subconsciously, so people generally don't remember what the heck we did. But what was that like for you?
Well, maybe I remember more about it because at times you were changing facilitators, so there was a little bit more breaks for me to process things in between. But I would say the best way to describe it would be, I had a picture that was framed, a memory that was framed. And as we went through that day, we took that frame down, we took that frame apart, and we put a whole new one together. And we didn't change the picture, which is the part you'd think you'd really be changing. No, the picture always stayed the same. 21 January 2007, that stayed the same the whole way through. The incident of a Blackhawk being shot down, the incident of me losing 13 friends in less than a matter of minutes, none of that changed in that picture. But what changed was the way I viewed the 13 people. All right. Before, it was like I felt like I'd lost 13 friends. I had this huge loss, and there was no way to bring what had happened home. Instead, that as we rebuilt the frame around that scenario, what I realized was I had 13 precious stories I had to tell. And I coupled that with a speech I heard from the former Chief of Staff of the Air Force, where he said, every airman has a story. We have to let them tell it, or we have to tell it. And when you mix that together, now I have a complete frame. Same picture, same memory, but now I'm able to relay that without being completely overwhelmed with the emotions that you would feel from that kind of loss, but be able to articulate it in a way that is more of, I get to carry this story. I get to tell what happened, as opposed to, I suffered this.
Yes, and I remember, because I'm pretty sure I closed up the end of that session, getting into the details of it, when it had just been framed as a story of loss and tragedy, which it was, it really narrowed your focus to the more tragic parts of all of that. And the entire story became focused on that. I remember when we pieced it out, like really went back and we pieced it out, you almost got to see the before and the during and the after really differently. And you picked up pieces that you hadn't remembered were even there.
Yeah.
And they were really beautiful pieces, really pieces that you could be proud of. pieces that you could then share with other people
Yes.
that had honestly been lost in the frame. And so getting back, I know that it's something that would probably be very possibly scary for people, or if they think like, I do not want to unlock these really, really terrible things that happened, because they think going back they're gonna re-experience it all over again. But there were pieces that you had missed.
Yes.
And all you were practicing over and over and over again was the horror of it, and the shame and the blame and everything like that. When we released a lot of that, there was so much good that was actually there.
Yes. It just really helped me put it into a perspective to where I was reluctant to share it, because it would just overwhelm. And then I'd get all choked up. I wouldn't be able to speak. I wouldn't be able to carry out the thoughts, to where seeing a lot of the good, seeing a lot of those images, the faces. I think, I can't remember who it was that was talking to me. Do you see their faces? What is on their faces? Remember who these people actually were, not what happened to them. Remember the times you spent together that made them your friends, not what happened to them. Remember the lives they lived. Remember the good and the appreciation that what you were doing there was all about, and being able to unlock that side of it for me. I can't imagine what it would be like to stay locked up. I know there was a time where I was talking with someone and they said, do you have any regrets about your military service? And I really think that because of that, even though I've been through some just really horrific things, okay, and participated in some of that, and had, which you have to do, because I can see through that and still get to the good and see why we were there, what we were doing, and that it made a difference in the end. It really, really, that was very freeing, is the word I would use.
Yeah, you left a different man.
Yes.
It was so beautiful to see. Yeah.
Yes. And because of that, I've been able to be an officiate at a retirement ceremony, and account for some of the things that I've experienced. It was actually my cousin's retirement ceremony. Wow. And he and I were deployed together, and I was able to talk about those experiences and share them the way I'd learned to unlock them, not the way that they were locked up.
And this has had a lasting impact, right?
Yes.
The ability to see how differently you could experience that memory, and the skills that you've learned, and you've done some more work and have stayed in the sphere.
Yes.
Has had other impacts on you as well, right?
Yes.
Like you were sharing something about a family event.
Yes.
Maybe you could. Yeah.
Yeah. I had a time where we were at a large conference, for church. The music was so loud you could feel the percussion in your chest, and that was not good for me at all. I had to step out, and I was like, ooh, and I talked to Paolo Ugolini at the time, and I said, I think we better do some more here. This was not good. I was in fight or flight mode, and I haven't felt that way in a very, very long time. And I said, I think we really need to dig into this. And one of the things that we really realized was, I always had in the back of my mind that I was going back. Mm-hmm. And I never really let myself come all the way home. And if you remember the first incident we were talking about, one of the places that I built as that anchor or safe place was home. And that was the word I'd even used and everything else. And we took that and started going from there and saying, okay, Matt, you're home. How do you leave all that other behind and just be here and home? And we started to really, really work on that. So then I agreed to do a devotional for our family reunion. And it was after much prayer and trepidation that I even agreed, because I was that what they really wanted me to share was share about your military career and kind of just let us all know where you've been, because I'd missed so many reunions, being deployed or whatever else. And instead of them saying, yeah, or trying to encourage me or whatever else, I just said, just say home. And that really, really helped, because it was the first time I'd been able to really see some of my cousins and extended family from a very large one. There was 130 people present. But just to be able to really feel home, that was huge. And now what I'm finding is just unlocking that and letting myself come home all the way. You know, I was sharing, I went to a football game, all the pyrotechnics and everything else. Hey, I still duck. My knees still buckle. I still look for something hard to get behind. But then I realized, wait a minute, I'm home. And I'm able to enjoy the entire game. And I don't mind jumping, but I could feel like I'm home. And that, I don't feel like, oh, man, they put off all those fireworks and everything else at the games. I don't want to go. No, I'm there. I'm present. I'm able to be there with the family and friends, encourage their son in the marching band, and just enjoy it.
Love that. Because it feels very sad and unfair how easily people can be taken back to war. When they're home, they're out, they got out, they lived, they made it. And a sound,
A smell, a sound.
and they're back in war.
You are. But what I've learned through mind change is it doesn't keep me there. Yeah, mind change hasn't stopped me from going back in an instant. When I heard about the U.S. action in Iran, Iran's retaliation, I went back like that. My mind instantly started to prepare if you'll indulge me, prepare the battlefield, we got to go. And it started remembering, okay, this is how I have to do to protect myself. And, you know, I was having a conversation with my wife again, and she was like, you just seem off. I'm like, really? What? And then it dawned on me, I was getting ready to go. Even though I'm retired, I'm out, it's been years since I've had to go. It wasn't that long ago for my mind, and it was getting ready to go again. But now, having done so much of the work and everything else, I'm not saying it's done,
Right.
but just continuing, now I recognize those things ahead of where I'm completely isolated myself or whatever else.
Yeah. And over time, now that you have an anchor of home, you can actually be home and it's real, it gives you the space and the freedom to work on whatever comes up.
Yes.
Now war can be what happened, not what's happening.
Yes.
And you've got tools. You've proven to yourself that one of the worst things that could have ever happened to you, you've been able to have a different frame around, and it doesn't hijack you any longer. Now you have the story to tell. So you can build on that, go to a football game and enjoy your family and have a story that isn't stuck.
Exactly. I never left home and went to war without being fully equipped with the best my nation had to offer me. So now that I've come home and I've started doing this, now I'm equipped for the rest of my life.
Yeah. Great. What the best the nation has to offer you.
There you go.
That's what I think. Mind change is the best the nation has to offer for stuff like this.
You know, it equips you to handle those things. I don't necessarily know what the next trigger will be. I know it's out there, but I have from now until then to prepare for it.
And you have the tools.
And I have tools and understanding and awareness. I think I would add to that awareness to know what those triggers are, what what effects I see in myself. So now if one of my daughters or my wife says, you seem, oh, I know what's going on.
Yeah. That's a whole other level of freedom.
Yes.
So do you think that this is something that could be helpful for other servicemen, other veterans, something that if someone's watching and they've been holding on to these stories or these horrific things and have not yet thought about going there? Because the thought is, leave it in the past, leave it over there. But the thing is that people don't leave it over there.
Yeah, I definitely think so. One, the freedom to be able to talk about it. Okay. To learn how to articulate it. I spoke to my great uncle in between two of my combat tours. He was a Battle of the Bulge survivor. It had been 50 years since his combat experience. And I asked him, I said, am I ever going to enjoy fireworks again? He said, sorry. So I'm not saying it's going to make it to where you're going to be, you have that experience. It's changed you forever. But even though you've been changed by it, you don't have to let it change what it is you do. Mm-hmm. And that's what Mind Change has really helped me with. I no longer, that list is a whole lot shorter now. I'm probably not going to go to the next rock concert with my wife and daughters because, the sound and the concussions and everything else, that's not all the way gone, but I'm okay with that. There are a great many of the other things on there that I am able to do now that I wouldn't have enjoyed.
Over time, if it's something you really want, I'm sure you believe that it could change.
Yes.
Yes, because you've had enough experience already. Yeah.
Yes.
That's fantastic. I cannot remember when you were here for the workshop. Did you watch the gentleman that we had brought up on stage, Ray?
Yes, Ray and I had talked even before he went up on stage. A little bit about my experience with a day or two before,
right? I think
or
it was
hours
the day
before.
Yeah.
I don't remember. And we had talked a little bit, and I was like, yeah, it's worth it. And I know I never heard how much. I know he went through it. I know he did more, but I haven't had a chance to talk to him since.
What was it like for you watching it? Someone else who had been carrying a really traumatic memory, one that he couldn't even really talk about, but he said he would dream about it every night, and I think it had been 20 years.
Yes.
And in 40 minutes, I think we gave him some pieces of that he didn't realize he had. And that whole story changed for him. And it was about a little girl dying in his arms.
Young girl dying in his arms in a firefight situation they'd gotten into. It was extremely real, right? I could be right there. I could smell the smells, see the things, feel the heat of the desert again. But through all of that, seeing his reactions and response was very rewarding. And to see, wow, this really, really does help. But one of the things I remember from that, and even my own experience that you shared, was I don't remember if it was there or in my own experience, you said you got to be careful when you're doing this because you can be right there with them in their memory. And that was something that was very real to me particularly when I was listening to him. I realized, wow, we all can work together and help one another at this, but you really need someone that can really be separate from it to help you, because as someone that had experienced that so much firsthand myself, I could put myself right there with him in that whole scenario. And I was like, oh, so even listening to him, it was helping me. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
Yeah, it is something people in the field, we call it tertiary trauma, hearing other people's trauma, being there with them, in whatever way, even if someone's never experienced war. I've actually heard that therapists who are working with veterans and dealing with PTSD carrying so much of that upon themselves.
Right.
So in Mind Change, we do it a little differently, by way of subconscious mind and putting it over there and the story of it, and we understand its stories. We don't actually have to go in with somebody. I get to go in when they're doing their good stuff, but I don't have to go in when they're doing all of the other stuff, because they're in it, we put them in it, we clean things up, and there isn't we're not just trying to get them to think better about it or feel better about it. Things actually change. And therefore, we don't have to carry any of the stuff. It's a totally different way of doing it. So we can sit with people in the deepest, darkest stuff and generally not carry that home with us.
Yes.
But yes, and that is one of the things, is often it's some of the only things people have is getting around buddies and talking war stories, right? Sharing war stories, because they're some of the only people that understand. But very frequently, they're re-traumatizing each other.
You're all in it together.
You're in it together again. And there's some
Exactly.
camaraderie in being seen in a way that nobody else can see you. But there is also sometimes a rehearsal of the same issue. And it feels good to get together again, but it can be really tough walking away knowing how hurt everyone still is.
Yes.
So it's great to see hope, you know.
I will say that I'm able to now, like I shared, I got to do it at a family reunion, a retirement event. I went to a football game, made it through all the pyrotechnics. And I'm not sure I would have been able to enjoy those things had it not been for even the little amount of time that I've spent around it and everything else. And I will say the community that is having the type of experience that I've had is growing. Through a hobby and an interest, I've met a gentleman who is a criminal forensic individual, and he works with fire departments. And he is working with firefighters on so many of the same issues and everything else. And I was sharing with him what I've done to work on my own. And I am by no means an expert, but I said, you really need to look into this as you're helping firefighters. And one of the fire departments he's dealing with is the one in North Carolina where they were just ambushed. And the six that lost or 6 of them that were ambushed, and 1 was critically wounded. And he just called me again about a week or 2 ago, asking me, hey, what was that again?
Oh, wow.
So the need is growing. The need is growing.
Well, the more people, Matt, that come in are brave enough. It's like, so you're brave enough to hop on a plane and go to the most dangerous places in the world, in the most dangerous situations, but it can feel, people feel not as brave to handle going back there in their own minds. And the fact that you did, and were willing to sit in the back with one eye cocked and like suspicious, maybe
Yes,
a little
yes.
skeptical, but then continue to push through and find your own victory. I mean, that's what it takes. It takes one person saying, hey, actually this stuff really works.
Yes.
And it's not as hard or as scary or as, woo-woo as someone may think.
That's the term, woo-woo. That was the
Woo-woo.
word I was looking for, yes.
Can feel a little woo-woo, even though we've got a lot of science. Well, that's really incredible. Thank you so much for sharing your story. If there's anybody else out there who's maybe listening to this with one eye cocked, like you were in the beginning, if you could go back and speak to the Matt sitting in the back of one of those workshops, what do they need to hear that might fast track their understanding?
I think I'd give them the Nike slogan, just do it. Just do it. Trust it and just do it.
Yeah, that's good. So great, thank you. And your wife has done.
My wife is doing the same now as well. Boy, let me, if I may, just a minute there. I'm the one that lived through the experiences. They were my experiences, but I think she made every helicopter ride, every convoy, and every event with me, even though she wasn't on the battlefield with me. And I will tell you that I didn't even know that experience and how much it permeated out into my entire family, extended family even. When it goes from being something you see on the news to someone you know there, it is a whole different experience. And Kim is now working through some of that as she goes through, this is my reality, what I went through while my husband was going through that.
Yeah.
And mind change, God, my wife and I just celebrated our 32nd wedding anniversary. And those are the reasons, because there were a number of folks, it got to the point to where some of the soldiers I was with didn't even want to go home on their mid-tours because they were greeted with an empty house, with a coffee table, an envelope, and a chair. And in the envelope was their divorce papers. That is where things were getting to, because not being able to deal with these things. And Kim and I are happily married. That's not to say we never have issues, everybody does, but it's helping us be able to relate in ways we never thought possible.
I wonder, you finally having tools to deal with your side of it has given her the freedom to now say, oh gosh, now maybe I can look at how I dealt with it.
Right. I think more than that, me saying, hey, I'm going to deal with this, and her watching that, particularly watching the gentleman on the stage here and watching it, I think it made her realize, wait a minute, I have some of that that I need to deal with. And like I said at the beginning of this, that's the first step, is this will work on me.
Yeah, that's so great. Matt, thank you so much for your service. Thank you so much for sharing and your bravery for stepping forth and doing something. I think that you've led the way and the charge for many, many years of your life. And it's so good to see that you have not stopped doing that.
Thank you.
Even on the civilian front.
Thank you.
Appreciate you coming and sharing all your stories.
Well, thank you very much, Heather. I appreciate the opportunity.
Good stuff. And thank all of you for joining us once again on the Mind Change podcast. Hey, if you heard something here, something of value, or you think this could provide value to somebody else, please share it. You never know who it's going to help, who it's going to reach, who it could open up a door for. So thanks for watching and for joining us, where we are changing the world one mind at a time.